Eli, we're done. Can you make sure you do the punk rock one?
Let's go!
So I'm excited that we're gonna keep working on ourselves and get better. Yeah, but season 2 was rough between us. Like just on a personal level, we went through a lot, so it's okay. We're gonna look back at this season, big picture thinking. We're gonna look back at this season and be like, ooh, how the hell did we survive? And record every single week and meet every single week and plan and create and shit. We're doing a lot, so big pats on our backs. But anyway, welcome back to the Primas podcast family. Thank you for joining us. We are so excited about today, as always, and I am your prima Cindy. What's up? And Jessica, how are you?
Hey Prima, how's it going? This week has actually been super tough. How about you?
Yes, I just feel like I've been on this like weird cloud, where I'm just kind of like, hey, I'm gonna let Jesus take the wheel, and we'll just see what happens.
I totally get you. I feel like I'm in this really dark place where I've been like just thinking, well, let's just talk about death. Let's just see what's going on in that topic. Why doesn't anyone talk about it? It seems like a great place. Like
Let's normalize death.
I know. But it's been super tough. So I wanted to share that I've been very open about going to therapy. I meet with my therapist every Friday, and last Friday was a tough week. I was peeling the layers of the onion, as Shrek likes to say. And it's been very emotional. We keep thinking, oh, therapy's easy and it's this and that, but I've been in it since last July, and just recently I'm going through the emotions of it, going through some breakthroughs, really like digging in deep. A lot of the issues I think I've been holding in for who knows how long, but it's been an emotional week. Sorry guys, I don't mean to be such a Debbie Downer, but Prima asked how I was, and this is how I'm feeling.
And it's important that we keep it real and authentic with our family of the Primas podcast. And I want to give you kudos because I admire that you have been so open about therapy. And even though you started, back last summer, I've always heard a lot of people say like, oh, I've tried therapy and it didn't work, or I didn't click with the therapist or whatever. And it's important for people to know that you got to keep trying things. You got to be open. It's not always going to just be perfect and beautiful. And it's important that you said it's been 9 months and now I'm feeling a breakthrough, because it just goes to show like we're unwrapping layers and years of conditioning, of trauma that we didn't even know existed. We for me it's been like, damn, I never knew that I had that problem, and it came up like a fire.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's cool that you're sharing that, because it's vulnerable, and because it also, I hope, motivates others that if you really want to work on yourself, and you should, because that's a way to set yourself free, is by dealing with all your trauma so that you can face the world in a very beautiful, peaceful way, is by doing the work. And are you done with therapy, or are you going to continue?
No.
Or what do you think?
I gave myself a 2-year time frame. I don't want to stop until 2 years after and just reevaluate where I'm at in life at that time. But I think when we talked to Georgina, I mentioned I want to continuously forever be in therapy because it's ever growing. Things are ever changing, my environment, my thought process. So I think it's a really great way of self-care, just to be able to talk to someone with a non-biased opinion.
That's really good. And it's a great investment of time and energy. That's your self-care, like when people go to the gym, or they're eating healthy, or they're learning about finances or whatever. Therapy is a very beautiful investment that it's leading you to the end of your suffering, right? Would you say?
it's helping me guide it myself, yeah, through these emotions. Like I said, I knew they were there, but it's like I've been suppressing them for so long. So it's coming up for sure. And able to heal, I think, yeah. So ending the suffering, just healing correctly in a safe, guided space.
I'm proud of you, Beanie.
Thank you.
And go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I'm ready. I'm done about being sad. So start making me laugh, and let's get into the topic.
Okay, I was gonna transition. So I like how you said that the last thing you said was something about you didn't know that you had these emotions, right? Like we keep saying that. And the mind is a beautiful thing. We obviously are all about that at the Primas podcast. We are very much behavior enthusiasts, brain mind enthusiasts, because we really believe, because we have firsthand experience, that it is a powerful thing. And I remember in my cover letters, when I think I still have it's a sentence, and I just felt like so proud about it because I came up with that when I was like 18 and I just always used it. And it said, the human brain is capable of optimal achievements under the proper circumstances. And so that means, environment. We talk about environment and the brain, our brains, every single being on this planet came here to thrive. But then life caught up, right? And it knocked us. And I don't like to look at it in a negative way, but I want to keep it real and say that shit ain't easy, like out here, and we're not aware of it. And so when we're older, if we're self-aware enough, we're able to take therapy. We're able to look deep into our traumas and be like, I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to have these reactions when I'm upset. I don't want to stress out this way or be anxious or be depressed or whatever. Everybody is so unique. Everybody is battling their own very unique stories. And I'm excited that we're going to talk about forensic psychology, because forensic psychology is almost like the contrast, or it can be used as, so when we talk about human behavior, we can learn ways to form an environment that gives us positive results. When we talk about our behavior, right, that's our environment. And we can also form environments that bring out the not so positive parts in us. And when we talk about um like CSI and like Miami or whatever, like all of those shows, 48, the first 48 was my
Criminal
show.
Minds.
Criminal Minds, and humans
Mind
were
Hunters.
so, what is it?
Mind Hunters on Netflix. I love that show.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people like all of those like criminal shows about, like, because what those shows are doing, believe it or not, are explaining the psychology. They're helping you understand the mind of these people or give you more insight on the situation. And we're at home like, damn, that's crazy, right? And so uh before we get started, I just want to say, what is forensic psychology? And
Prima,
forensic psych go
before
ahead.
you get into forensic psychology, I've been working up this joke for about 3 weeks now since we decided to
That's
work
right.
on this topic.
Yes.
I'm a huge fan of memes and we send them to each other all the time. So get this joke. Sex is cool, but have you ever studied forensic psychology? Family dropper.
Oh my God, that's like so hot. Who wrote that?
I swear. It was just like, man, we need to start like writing our own jokes. We can't rely on Eloy anymore. And that was my big joke.
That was really good.
I
That
thought
was
it was funny.
hilarious.
I know, right? Because it's like so much more interesting and exciting when I talk about forensic psychology.
Yeah, you've always been into that. Even when we were younger, you've always been into like weird ass shows.
I know. Remember Death Becomes Her? Just kidding. That's a whole nother topic. Let's not even go into
Yeah, but
that.
like all the movies that you would say when we were little, I was like, whoa, they're always trippy. What, there was this other one you used to like a lot. I don't think I ever really watched it. Hocus Pocus?
Yes,
No?
that's not psychological.
It's not, but I'm just saying when we were little,
Oh,
everybody
yeah.
had the same type of movies. You always had some like crazy ones thrown in there. And I was when we were little.
I can only recall Death Becomes Her.
And my tia Gloria would be like, yeah, you guys, like, it's normal. What? And I was like, what kind of movie is this? You know, we're children, right? Because like my mom would never. So, anyways, your movie choices is a topic for another time for real. Okay,
Right?
forensic psychology A forensic psychologist is a licensed psychologist. Wow, I said psychologist like 30,000 times. Who apply their knowledge of the mind and human behavior to civil and criminal law. They can also give advice to law enforcement, attorneys, judges, and juries to help them unpack the state of mind of the charged criminal.
All right. To not make it so use a lot of big fancy words. So in a nutshell,
heated of.
it's the psychology in the courtroom, would you say?
Yeah, like in criminal justice.
Correct. There you go.
Okay, yes. So where do we want to start?
I love forensic psychology. I never took a class on it in college. Did you, Prima?
No.
No. But one of my favorite professors, shout out to Professor Frenda, if you're listening, made me really put my game up when it came to this. Like, yeah, I think as a kid, I've always like loved like detective shows and things like that. And who murdered this person? I'm like, I just, I would always play like detective. So when I took his class in Cal State LA, I want to say it was for cognitive psych, but his emphasis in his degree was forensic psychology. So he would always tell us about these court cases he was like working on, and that like professionals would actually call him in, and he would be the doctor, to give his facts. And he would be both the defendant and the state or whoever's like going against. He didn't care. He just said, I'm going to give facts and I'm not going to be biased. So I remember when we were talking about it, he brought up the Miranda rights. And do you know the Miranda rights? Like if you had to recite it off memory.
Absolutely not.
So neither did I. And I would always hear that term, but I'm like, what are the Miranda rights, right? So just to give like a little background, the Miranda rights are these certain statements cops have to tell you when you're either getting arrested or I want to say even pulled over. So the first one is like you have the right to remain silent. Anything you can and will be used against you in the court of law. You have the right to talk to a lawyer and have him present while you're being questioned. If you cannot afford to hire a lawyer, one will be appointed to you and represent you before any questioning. If you can't decide at any, and you can decide at any time to exercise these rights. And to me, it just blows my mind. Like this week, we had another killing of an innocent Black guy in a car over car fresheners. Where were these statements read to him before even asking him to get out of his vehicle? Like they're there for a reason. They're there to protect. You're not guilty until the court rules that. But here we are. You know what I mean? Like they're there. They're meant to be there to protect us, but they're not. And another innocent person dead over. I can't even wrap my mind around it.
And I don't think I ever, because even I remember like, shows like Cops or like there's a lot of people that record themselves now when they're getting pulled over on YouTube. And they never read them their rights ever. I don't think I've ever, and that has a lot to do with control and power. And that's why we have a lot of issues with law enforcement and police as authority figures because they don't, I'm sure there's great cops like in every profession, but cops really do have a rep of, and this goes probably, all across the board, they abuse that power and control because they know they can get away with it because the George Floyd trial is also going on. And every single day, there's a new person explaining what happened when we all saw what happened. And they're really they're spending so much time and effort into like, what? We all saw what happened. If you choke a person, if you cut off their air supply from their neck, whether it's with a knee, a hand, whatever, we all saw what happened. And we say that those things are there to protect us, but as I mentioned before, I think a lot of policy, most, maybe like 100% of it, is outdated. It doesn't work for us, but it does work to keep people in power and us people not empowered down. And I think it's coming to the surface because of our technology use. Everything is recorded now. And we're able to see these stories every single day. And as much as you want to deny or not, it's in your face. It's very clear, like who has law and authority and who uses that, not law and authority, control and power, and who uses that to, in a negative way. And you, yeah.
And I was going to say, like, before it would be like my word against, or our word against the cops, who's going to win that argument? And even our memory, like, well, no, I remember this and I remember that, and we're going to get into it and we're going to see how unreliable our memory is. But there is no denying that video recording, And I remember, when the protest would start, like, this isn't the first time it happened, but now the difference is people are recording it, which is way more reliable than all the other methods we used before. But there is still no change when it comes to that. And these rights are written in our amendment to protect us, and it's not happening.
Yeah, it doesn't happen. And the reason why I think it doesn't happen is because we look at the world, or at least in the United States, in a very business capitalistic way where everything is a business. The government is like the CEOs, and then they run all of these little different things. And I'm sure there's like someone even above them controlling that. It's a business. This whole world is based off of business. And so we're not really invested in getting quality results from our society, because if you really were, that's not how you handle a situation. Like law enforcement, there's been too many stories for years, and it's not just with the Black community, it's all across the board. Law enforcement really doesn't have a good rep. It doesn't seem like they're hiring people of quality. They're not hiring, I don't know, but it just, right, like results speak louder than words. You can say you're doing something, but what we're seeing from our phones, on social media, anywhere on the internet, is showing that you're not being a leader. You're not really here to protect and serve. And so now we got to watch out for you. And when we talk about, when people, okay, so like interrogations, that's something that I was really into for this, is they use a lot of psychology when they do interrogations to have people confess, whether they're guilty or not. And that's fucked up, because you're locking up someone who might or may not be guilty. Sometimes they even know whether they're guilty or not, but it's a business. I got to lock someone up so that the case is closed. Mm-hmm. And they get these people to confess. And like, how do you go to sleep at night knowing that you put this person away for 10 years? And that's going to ruin their life, because jails are not correctional facilities. They ruin lives. And when you get out, your life is still ruined, because that's going to go on your record. It's like, it's all a setup. It's a setup, and that's business. It's not made for us to win.
Yeah, they break down people. And then it just goes back to those Miranda rights. Like, people don't understand them. And I feel like there's this misconception where people feel guilty if they lawyered up, or they feel guilty for not talking. And it's just like, they're like, oh, well, I'm not guilty. I have nothing to say. But what was the second one I just read? Anything you say will and can be used against you. So it's like, why would you want to talk to them without a lawyer present who's going to have your back, who's going to be the only person in the room fighting for you, hopefully, right? Because I can't trust anybody. Let's talk about that. I'm just kidding.
Even lawyers, and that's a business. They're so expensive. Yeah. So I think even when you get caught up in a situation, you don't think lawyers, because you're like, that's too expensive. I can't afford a lawyer. Mm-hmm. And so they're not accessible. So I think if I ever got caught up, I don't think now I would, because I know so much about this stuff, but
it says that even if you don't have the right to afford one will be appointed to you. But even so, those are the court lawyers. And that's why people are like, well, I don't know. And it's just like, let's utilize them as best as possible. And yeah, I would. If I were to ever get arrested, and after this class and what this professor brought light to me, I would 100%, if someone were to arrest me right now, or I've done some homework, but I would encourage everyone else to do their homework and know your basic human rights. Like, they can't arrest you inside your house, So that's another like scheme. When they say, oh, come outside, I got to like show you something. Then once you step out on your porch, you're in public and they're able to arrest you. But without a search warrant, which about 80% of the time they don't have, they'll just arrest you right in front of your house because you just stepped outside your house thinking you were safe. And it's little tactics
people,
like you were just saying about like being in a room with 2 or 3 other officers and it's you by yourself and they're psychologically tearing you down. They would leave people in there for hours and hours and hours in a bright room where you can't even sleep and get proper rest. And there's no right. If you were to ask them, well, are you arresting me? No. Okay, then there's no reason to keep me. So I'm going to walk out the door. But they don't make it that easy for you. You know, they're not going to tell you, well, just so you know, you can leave at any time you want. They want to make you believe you're already guilty, you know? And it's about like, I don't know, changing your mind already, making you believe you're guilty.
Yeah. And the way that they do that is very similar to how businesses ran in the world. For example, a car dealership, when you go into a car salesman, they're going to use the same exact tactics to make you feel comfortable, to make you connect, to make you say, a lot of car salesmen will ask you personal questions, not personal like inappropriate, personal like, oh, where are you from? Where are your parents from? Do you have kids? How many? And then they start getting to know you, but these tactics are used for you to feel more relaxed. And these are psychological tactics. So in an interrogation room, as you were saying, people are dehydrated, they're stressed out, they're in an interrogation room. Their level stresses are stress levels are high. Need of. And they're probably not eating, or they haven't ate, and all of this will break you down. When you go and buy a car, there's a lot of it's all different now, but a huge tactic in the past was to keep you there as long as possible, because you're gonna get tired. You're gonna mentally exhaust. Anytime your brain is focused on a task for like 2 hours, I think that's the limit. And you got to take a break to refocus. And so, car salesmen, I mean, they need to get their money, right? So like they're gonna make sure that they manipulate the shit out of you to get a behavior they want out of you, which is to just buy a car. And I'm gonna tell you whatever you need to hear, as long like I'm gonna eat with this money. So like that's their motivation, right? In the interrogation room, it's the same thing. If I lock someone up, this closed case, Johnson. And so how do you do that? By having people falsely confess. Again, this is whether they're guilty or not, or they just manipulate the story, they lie to them. I didn't know that was legal, but a lot of cops will lie and say, look, we know that you did it. We have you on tape. So how do you want to be remembered? And so they start really going deep after you're exhausted, tired, dehydrated, hungry, uncomfortable, stressed out. You're mentally weak. Mm-hmm. You're not going to be on your A game. You want to get out of there. And so you're almost like going to say anything. And there's been a lot of situations where people get locked up for a really long time, which is horrible. And then they come out because, someone, I don't know how, but like finds out that like they weren't guilty.
Yeah. That's called coercion.
Those cops don't get in trouble for that.
No, they don't. And all those years and time that people spend in jail, oh, my bad. And that's all the city says, my bad. Oh my God, we got it so wrong. How could we have done that to you? And you spent 20 years locked up. Unless they actually sue. Yeah, there's so many stories like that. And then that kind of goes into like, let's just say, and there's different tactics. That's one, interrogation and coercion, where they make you do things and threaten you. But another one that trips me out, or the two, are how we still use eyewitness testimonies and how unreliable they are, especially. And these are studies done. We love psychology. We love research. So in all these psych classes that we're taking, they're using all these experiments and saying, okay, well, let's test that. That's interesting behavior. Let's test this. So they have so many studies that show how unreliable eyewitness testimonies are, which goes back to our memory. And like I mentioned earlier, our memory is not like a phone recording. It's not reliable. There's such a thing as called false memories, but yet it's implemented in our justice system and puts people away. How is this legal? How is this even allowed? I can just say, and I remember in this psych class I took with Miranda, he tested us one time. He showed us a video of a crime happening, right? It was a study done. And I wanted to find the video, Prima, so I could have like tested you right now. I'd have been like, okay, Cindy, go, you know, even if you're paying attention, it's so crazy. And it was a witness. We saw a crime. There was a weapon involved. And he was like, okay, so these are the lineup. These are the 10 people in a lineup. Raise your hand if you thought it was number 1, all through 10, right? And I raised my hand at one point. I'm like, oh, I was 100% certain. And this is also why I'm in therapy, because I'm a little too confident, or like I won't budge if I think I'm right, you know? And I was like, it's number 7. I was so certain. And then he's like, okay, whatever, we're done. And at the end, he's like, actually, the person who did the crime wasn't even in the lineup. And my mind blew. I was just like, no freaking way. I just saw the video you played for us. And he's like, this is eyewitness testimony. And there's been studies shown that it's even, I think it's close to 60%. If you're of a different race, you're going to get it wrong. That's less than half. You have half of a chance to pick out someone of a different race than you, because we don't recognize, there's different facial features that we just don't recognize of an opposite race of us. Imagine those stats.
One of our professors did do that, but they actually had someone run in the room and then run back out. And they didn't tell us nothing. They just ran in the room, and I think it was obviously planned, but it was, and then he asked us, okay, like there was like a little quiz, like what color hat, what color was he wearing, a hat, boy or girl? Like we just had to identify everything. And me too, I was so sure they had a red hat on. I was so sure, whatever. And then at the end, all of us were wrong. That was the point of that, was just like, this is how I would, like you said. And so it's so messed up, because people also get in trouble for that shit. And it's just like, no, it's number 7. I saw it with my own eyes. And even if it's not true, because our brain, they're like, our brains like to make connections. And so it'll make sense of something, even, especially when you're looking at something, you can just literally be like, no, that's what I saw. I could swear with my life that's what I saw, because your brain is literally just trying to connect the dots. It was so quick. You're just trying to make sense of everything. Exactly. And it's bringing in other information. And so that's how we learned about that experiment, and how inaccurate, how our brain works, like
how unreliable our own memory is.
Yeah, how unreliable our own memory is. Keep those receipts, people. No, I'm just fine. That sucks for those people who get convicted.
To not even throw in other factors, like when it is happening to you, I would tell myself, if anyone were to come to me like, oh ma'am, what did you witness? What did you see? Or do you want to like go to court for this? I'd say hands down 100% not, because there's so many emotions involved at that moment. You're witnessing a crime scene. Let's just say it is someone who has a weapon in their hand. That's also proven. If there's a weapon, you're only focusing on the weapon. Everything else is peripheral vision. How did I say?
Need of peripheral?
Thank you. Yes, everything else is that. So imagine if there's a weapon involved, you're not even looking at anything else around in your environment. So how can you say you're not even looking at the criminal's face? You're only looking at the weapon. So how can you give an accurate testimony when that's involved? It blows my mind.
That sucks. That's such unreliable. That's an unreliable method, and it hurts people. So it's like, come on, that's just crazy. Like that's so unethical. I don't know how people sleep at night, like knowing that they're locking people up. I'm sure, there's been so much, they've been doing this for so long. So I'm sure there's like, they have mechanisms that help them deal with situations, but I don't know. That's just messed up. Like for you to hurt someone on, like, that's your job. And I get it. Sometimes they do catch the bad guy. I don't like calling them bad guys. I don't believe people are bad, but and it's just kind of like, what about all those people? What about all those people that, just falsely said, yeah, I did the crime. And then they start giving you details that they never even did.
Yeah. And there's that website called Innocence Project, which is a bunch of people. I think it's over like 300 people now who are in jail stating that they've been falsely criminalized, whether it's coercion, whether they involuntarily admitted to this crime, even though they didn't. And they just have to wait for all these appeals to happen, or even money. It's just sad. It's sometimes a case of they don't have the means to hire a good lawyer to keep doing all this filing for them, And out of that, I saw this one on there because they show success stories, that finally like someone helped them and like reopened the case for them. And yeah, he had given up like 20 years of his life, and it was through DNA evidence that came through, and it wasn't the criminal. And then they showed the actual face of the guy they found because he was already in the system, but they locked up this innocent guy, and they look so similar. Like you would think they're either they have the same dad, or I don't know, but they were both look so similar. Like anyone could have made that mistake, And it just I can't believe we also rely on these methods. I would hate to be in the other end of it, but if I were, I even thought about like going into forensic psychology and being that person, like thoroughly doing my job, because it's always intrigued me, but.
Yeah, me too. I always wanted to, when I was in high school, I wanted to work for the CIA to interrogate the bad guys. That's crazy because then I was just like, never mind. And then I went into something else, something completely different.
Food
Yeah,
justice.
I went into like public health. Who would have thunk it? Who'd have thunk it? Or who would have? Anyways, yeah, I think the good thing about all of this is for us to be very aware of our environment and our brain and our thoughts. Because once you have control over this, then you won't be easily manipulated. Not just by, let's say you never get caught up in law, right? Like I never have been. Thank God I've never been. Whew, I don't know how to
What are you
deal.
pointing your finger at me for, Prima? It's a low blow.
But
Good girl.
somebody. No, I'm just playing. Yeah, like I've never been in that situation, of course, but I think in any situation, like with sales, which is a situation we have all day every day, there's always different tricks and manipulations from Amazon, McDonald's, Nike. Every brand, every business is using all of these tactics to make us do something. The colors that they use, and the font, the tone of voice someone uses with you, um everything, the more aware you are of these things, the more you're able to recognize, and then you have control over your environment, not your environment has control over you.
It's tough. I think I'm still learning that ball game because I sometimes fall for it, Even though I must say, when I got my last car, I did not let that salesman. I was just like, nope, try again, little boy. I was so condescending. But because I think I'm frustrated, I get angry with them and I see their attitude and I'm just like, no, we're not going to play this game, I remember at the dealership, I didn't take my daughter. It was me and my dad, just us two. And every time I told them it's going to be my car, my dad's just here for support, even though if you know my dad, he's the most gulliblest person. They would only look at him to talk. And I'm just like, okay, bro, okay, keep doing that. Like, I was just like, it was rattling me up
You
for
just
no
got
reason.
like a jerk kid who sold you, because there are some salesmen that are good and they're very smooth. They're like, oh hey, or boy or girl, because my mom's person that sold us the car was and when I went in there, um my mom was being emotional about it, and it's just like, no, let's play the game. This is what they're going to try to do. Don't go in there mad, and then I'm like, you're going to get exhausted quicker. Like that's what they want from us. They want us to get tired, and I'm not trying to be here all day. I was like, we're going to be here 2 hours tops. And I had a plan, I had a game plan, because I'm like, mom, I studied psychology for 2 years, I know what I'm doing. And then so she was like, she was just getting upset because they were trying to talk down to us, like, well, like they get tired too. And my mom was just like, let's go. Like being a Mexican mom, like, vámonos. And I'm like, oh my God, this isn't how negotiations work. Like everyone was pissed. So I think you have to go also into it with the right state of mind. Like, this is what, yes, It's a
Yeah.
business. Don't take it personal. And the moment you get exhausted, get out of there. Leave. You know they're gonna be there. Go the
Mhm.
next day or do what you gotta do. But I'm just kind of like with my mom, she starts getting really upset. She's like, they're trying to manipulate us. I'm like, yes, every business tries to manipulate us. They're just doing it in our face. Like, chill. Um, and you know where else there's a lot of psychology, and this is another topic that maybe we'll talk about it in the next episode. I don't know, but like in grocery stores, you
Mm.
know, like the or not even just a grocery store, Target, you know, wherever you
Mhm.
have a buggy, like a cart,
Mhm.
the size of those cars matters. They're on purpose. Do you see how big they are now? Before they were smaller. They've always gotten bigger.
Oh yeah, food for less is
It
huge.
used to
Now
be tiny.
the food for less by my house has enough where two kids can sit in the top cart thing.
Yeah,
And it's
because
like,
it's huge.
yeah, and it's bigger. So the width of it is bigger too. Mhm.
And that'll keep the kids confined. You're able to shop a little better when the kids are there's space, you know, for two kids, and all of that is psychological. So this is self-care tip of the day. So if you ever go to Target or Walmart or whatever the hell your crack is, because I feel like mine is Target,
Mhm. Mhm.
you don't, if you're like, I only need toothpaste or I only need shampoo or I only need, you know, you go into these stores like, I just need this one thing, but then you come out bankrupt.
Mhm.
So my tip is don't get a cart and do not get a little basket. Just because we'll fill that basket up and it's like all heavy, and like I've been in that position where I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? All I needed was toothpaste, and so that's another thing, and it's hard for people. But don't like really, really, really push yourself not to get a basket or a cart if you're only there for one or two things, because even if you are uncomfortable, guess what? Nothing else fits in your hands because you're just going to be like, oh, you know, it's going to be awkward. Things are going to be falling. So you'll get as many things fit in your hands and you'll save money. And saving money and being responsible with our money, as we heard from our financial coach, is very important. So
Mhm.
that's self care. Taking care of your finances and being smart and not letting Target get you or Amazon or whatever the hell your crack is. I just wanted to leave you with that. Self
I,
care tip of the day.
it's kind of hard to take your self-care tips seriously when you're pointing your finger after you just say hot Cheetos. Like that's all I'm thinking. You
Oh
just
my
had hot
gosh,
Cheetos.
seriously? You can see it?
Yes. It's like we can never give up hot Cheetos. Like that's life.
But let me tell you something. I didn't buy them. Someone brought them into my home, and that's where I'm like, damn it. Like, cause I don't buy them. Cause I'm like, nope, I'm good, I'm good. But if someone brings them in, like, hello.
My coworker once told me this thing about Target. It was so funny, but so true. She's like, you don't take a list to Target. Target tells you what you need, and that's what you come out with. And I'm like, that's I don't even shop there anymore. I just always would come out the same thing. I'm like, I went in for one thing and I came out with like a receipt of 150. And I'm like, okay, I'm touching my rent this week, I guess.
And Target was perfectly designed for that.
Mm-hmm.
The color red is the most motivational color for like food advertisement. So like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Doritos, Target,
Hot Cheetos.
Fridays, Hot Cheetos. Yeah, red is like a significant color. So pay attention to the color red, you guys. Like in advertisements, it's definitely trying to subconsciously get you to do something, which most of the time is spend your money.
See, guys, all this psychological manipulation. It's tough out there. So now you guys know why I was
Hard.
breaking down this week.
Yeah. And let's end with solutions. So it's like, what's the solution to this, right? I think, and I already said this, the solution is that we need to start being more self-aware of not just ourselves and our own thoughts, but of our environment. Just observe, question stuff. You don't have to go read, you know, a book on behavior and shit. Like, just pay attention to how you're feeling and then question that. When you're upset, when you're happy, whatever it is, say like, why do I feel this way? And then trace it back. Oh, I felt this way because I ate a chocolate. Well, yeah, chocolate, you know, all that sugar releases dopamine in your brain. You're going to feel great. Or, oh, I feel really sad or stressed out because I don't know, like for me, for example, like sometimes I get really like thrown off and I trace it back, and it's like, oh, I'm not sleeping comfortably, or I'm not eating well, or I'm not doing enough exercise, or, there's always something there. And like lately for me, it's been like I've been consuming sugar. I had cut sugar out of my diet a while ago, and I was only taking it like in my coffee and like in my protein powder thing. And like that was my only source of sugar intake, which was still bad because I'm trying to work on like just getting rid of sugar altogether. But lately, my sleep is bad. Like I can't sleep early, but I'm so tired. That just feels horrible, right? But anyway, my self-care tip is read between the lines. Ask yourself more questions about everything so that you're in control and you're not easily manipulated by anybody or any brand or anything. Yeah.
Definitely. I remember one of my professors, like as an introduction, she's like, at the end of this degree, you guys are going to question everything. And it's so true. It made me a critical thinker when it came to all aspects of my life and people's intentions. Even at work, I would just ask a million questions so I understood everything going on. I would hate to assume or just leave the faith of anything about to happen in someone else's hands instead of my own. I just can't. I need that understanding and that control in my own environment. Not environment, in my own way of doing things. But it is tough out there.
And it feels good though, right? Like all of the stuff we've been through, like looking back, it feels really good to know the truth, to seek the truth. Even when it hurts, like Jessica was talking about therapy in the beginning, and I think when we go through tough times in life, like it helps us if we're taking care of ourselves. And taking care of ourselves, I don't know, because I feel like we've been doing this podcast, and I feel like sometimes I'm like, people who listen to the podcast, I'm like, am I seeing a behavior change? And it's like, that's weird to think about that, but at the same time, I'm like, well, yeah, everything I talk about, I want to motivate people to do stuff like taking care of themselves. And I don't know, I just think it's important. I don't know where I was going with that. Sorry, I lost my train of thought, but our brain is very powerful, and you can get it to do what you want and to work to your advantage. It's all about our thoughts. So if I can leave this world, just kidding.
Mm-hmm.
But if I can leave today and say one thing, is that you can be in control of your life. You can end the suffering. You just have to do the work. It's not going to be comfortable to look into your thoughts. You're not going to understand it, but like seek out therapy, seek out these educational videos on YouTube, and seek out these books that help you with seeing, for me, it comes back to end suffering.
Mm-hmm.
If you're suffering in life for whatever reason, you can be in control of that. You just got to look into yourself more.
Yeah. Good conversation, Prima. It was very educational. I hope so.
Yeah, it's very educational. Forensics 101. Just kidding. Not at all. This is just our thought. All right. Thank you so much for listening. Please leave us feedback. We appreciate you when you hit us up on the DMs. Follow us on Instagram at Primas Podcast. Follow us on YouTube at Primas Podcast. Tell your friends about us. Share our videos. Share our everything. All right. We love you guys. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.